How's it going? We have officially started the live stream. I'm so excited. As always, if you're one of these people that clicked on the video after it was posted all over on the live tab or wherever you found it, guess what? You're my favorite. Because it usually takes about 3 minutes for people to actually start filtering into the live stream. I don't know why I use the word filtering, but coming into the live stream. And it doesn't always get a lot of views after. So for the people who clicked on it and chose to watch it, trust me, this is going to be super helpful with breaking down all of what has happened in America within the last week. You know, it is so funny because the more that I live in this country, physically and mentally and emotionally, the more I age. From frustration, maturity perhaps, but also like, oh God, there's just always so much. There's always so much. And you know, if you told people back in like 2012 that this is where America was going to be, no one is going to be like, that's crazy. If you were literally to go back in time, you were to say, hey, you know where America's going to be in like, 16 years or so, you'd be like, they would be shaking their head being like, there's no way. Oh, there's lots of way. There is more way than you could imagine. So we're going to do a big refresher. So today's show, most of the time I will always do like the breaking news, breaking down the current craziness, the stuff that's happened within 24, 48 hours. Today, I'm going to try something a tiny bit different. And it's not like a huge difference, but I'm just going to try to do a week in America. Wondering if I should make it like a reoccurring thing for Fridays. Fridays, I usually try to do something more lighthearted and funny and, a little bit less serious just because it's Friday. But all of what has kind of happened, I was like, there was just a lot just happened within 1 week. I mean, we went from talking about Jimmy Kimmel, everything that happened with that whole thing. And then also with ABC, Next Star, all of that with the FCC, Brennan Carr, and then going over to talking about the UN. I haven't even covered everything that Donald Trump has said about autism, Tylenol, acetaminophen. I want to do a special live that, given space time for that, maybe on like Monday or Tuesday, because that deserves attention in itself. That's not even something I've been able to get to because there's so much craziness that happens all the time. So anyway, I'm going to be doing a big refresh, a revamp, basically like, okay, this was the crazy week that happened in America. Maybe I should be like, on the last week in America, on the last episode of America, should I do that? That'd be kind of fun. So we're going to break everything down. I love all of you. Make sure to send some likes. If you don't like me, you don't like the live stream, that's fine. Just scroll on. I promise. I promise it's okay. Just scroll on. You don't have to watch the live stream. If you are one of these really, really angry, hateful people, and you're just obnoxious, just scroll on. It's a Friday. Go do something better with your time. Minding your own business is free. I promise. So, we're gonna be breaking everything down here. I love all of you. Thank you, Danny Boy. Start Ronical Pizza World. I don't even know. I don't know what. Okay, but thank you. Calling me handsome, love my videos. I appreciate that. Good morning, Akicha. Anyway, no, it's not off the air again. So let me break everything down. So, all right, we're officially starting. Here we go. That was not a good tongue pop. Hold on. Good morning, everyone. So today I'm going to be doing a big refresher, this is what happened in America in the last week. So on this episode, on this week in America, we're going to talk about Jimmy Kimmel. We're going to talk about everything that happened there. And I've been talking about it since the beginning. The real reason why Jimmy Kimmel was suspended was not like suspended indefinitely and then reinstated. The real reason why he was indefinitely suspended in the first place wasn't because of Charlie Kirk's comments. I know that the media or just mainstream likes to say that that's the reason, and that could have partially been it, but it was also a great way for these media corporations to capitulate to the government. And we'll break all of that down because there's a big deal that's been looming over, and ABC was getting a little greedy. But anyway, we're going to be talking about that. We're going to be talking about some of Trump's quips. Then we're going to be talking about the UN. So we're just going to do a recap of everything that happened. So let's start with this here. We're going to do a recap of the craziness that happened within America. So this happened, I think this was on like September 17th. So this probably, yeah, this was like, oh gosh, what was September 17th? Today's the 26th. So this would have been, I think, like, I can't do math. But it was suspended. It was suspended, maybe it was Friday. September 17th. Was that a Friday? I don't math very well. So anyway, so Jimmy Kimmel was suspended from ABC, and that happened a little while back. And it was reported to be about the Charlie Kirk comments. It's not even about Charlie Kirk comments. It was about the shooter, the alleged shooter for Charlie Kirk, the guy Tyler Robinson. Now, as you all probably know, Charlie Kirk, he's the super far right-wing propagandist, one of the founder of Turning Point USA. He was brutally assassinated. And I can say, as a progressive leftist person, watching that video of him being assassinated doesn't matter his political leanings. Watching the physical video and like him being shot, I would hope as a human that would make your stomach turn, because watching the video, it was just grueling. Like the way that the bullet hit him, it was, yeah, oh gosh. Anyway, of course, political violence is not okay. The one thing I will mention is he was also a huge purveyor and spreader of hate. Doesn't justify that being done to him, but it puts it in context. This is a guy, Charlie Kirk is a guy that said that gun violence deaths were necessary in order to protect the Second Amendment. This is a guy who said that empathy, being able to put yourself in someone else's shoes and empathize, is a new age term that does a lot more damage than good. These are famous quotes by him. And of course, many people got so angry that there were a lot of people in the wake of his assassination started posting on social media and sharing with their friends, oh, look, these are some of the things he said. And there were people that reacted being like, that's so insensitive at a time right now. It's like, it's not insensitive to share a Charlie Kirk quote after his death. That's what you do when someone dies. So if you think that it's insensitive to share what someone has said in their life after they've passed away, maybe it shows more about the person that passed away than the person posting that. Now, that being said, obviously it's been a crazy political moment. So there was a lot of tension. There was a lot of heightened, a lot of emotions around all of that. So when Jimmy Kimmel made a quick little quip about the alleged, and I believe there's a good amount of evidence for it, that Tyler Robinson, the guy who shot Charlie Kirk, I don't know if he's been actually formally indicted. I would have to double check on that. But he made a little quip about, because we were still unsure in the beginnings of the day, like the ideological leanings, the motive, all that stuff. And so he basically was like, well, you know, it might have been MAGA doing something to their own. And so he just said something very casually. It wasn't really big. And Disney, ABC was like, you're gone. Now, the specific quote that he gave was really not even that strong. He said, quote, "We hit some new lows over the weekend with the MAGA gang desperately trying to characterize this kid who murdered Charlie Kirk as anything other than one of them." Now, because in the beginning days, it was like, we still don't know the motive, we still don't know the ideological leanings, all that stuff. And that's not like a super in my view, damning statement. It's just like we were still not sure of everything. There was some evidence. His family was all MAGA. So it's like, well, it could have been, he might have been as well. So, and I'm not here to talk about the specific shooting aspect of Charlie Kirk. That's not the main takeaway here. So Jimmy Kimmel was suspended because of this, reportedly. There's something that you may not know about everything happening here. And it's because, and I reported about this in a video, it was a very easy thing for ABC to blame. It was an easy thing for Nexstar, which works with ABC, to say, oh, it's because of these comments that he was suspended. Well, ABC and Nexstar, Disney, these companies, they all really just want something from the federal government. So there's this big deal that's been looming in the wake of everything happening with Jimmy Kimmel's show, in the wake of Disney and ABC. Let me break down the structure for you. So Jimmy Kimmel is here. Jimmy Kimmel's show is owned and operated by ABC. ABC is owned and operated by Disney. So this is where Nexstar comes in. Nexstar is a big owner of ABC affiliated stations. Think of it as you have the people who own the company, then the people who own and operate and do a lot of stuff when it comes to the gears of the company. So ABC, which is owned by Disney, the big company there, Nexstar is a group that basically owns a lot of ABC affiliated stations. They're the ones that actually broadcast ABC stations, ABC local news, ABC everything there. So Nexstar has actually been trying to merge with another big company called Tegna. Now, Nexstar and Tegna, these are two of the biggest local media corporations. And you have Tegna, Nexstar, and then a couple smaller others. If Nexstar and Tegna were to merge, they would have to get special approval by the government in order to override a rule set in place saying, hey, we can't actually have a monopoly on that. So this is where the FCC comes in. So the FCC is led by a guy named Brennan Carr. Brennan Carr is the chairman of the FCC. The FCC stands for Federal Communications Commission. And Nexstar, which owns and operates a lot of the ABC stations, is trying to suck up to the government. What do we know about the government? What do we know about Trump? He hates late night talk show hosts, comedians. He has made that very clear. He's made it so clear all the time that he talks about, oh, well, I don't like these people. This is a guy who's threatened to try and take away the licenses of news corporations he doesn't like. Trump calls again for CBS to lose its license, CBS to lose its license. This is a guy who is not a fan whatsoever of NBC, of Stephen Colbert, of Jimmy Kimmel, of Jimmy Fallon, these people. He's not a fan at all. And he appoints this guy named Brennan Carr to be the FCC chairman. Well, I want to point something out about Brennan Carr. Brennan Carr, this guy, he wrote the section for the Federal Communications Commission in Project 2025. The super far right-wing document, yes, that whole thing. And so, basically, Brennan Carr acts as a servant, a lapdog to Trump. So Trump doesn't like these people. ABC affiliated stations like Nexstar and Tegna are like, okay, we need the government's approval if we're going to merge. Well, we need to suck up to the government. So they basically started sucking up to the government, and the government says, hey, throw Jimmy Kimmel under the bus and you got a deal. If you think this sounds crazy, let me break it down even further here. So, hold on just a second. This is, that's Nexstar, that's the, one of the companies, and then there's Tegna. which I pointed out earlier here. Y'all following me so far? I hope this all makes sense. I have a whole video that specifically talks about this, so if you need a recap, definitely go and check that out. So, hold on just a second. Let me get over here. So, here, hold on a second. Hold on just a second. Where is it? Where is it? Here we go. So, on a podcast, Brennan Carr, the chairman of the FCC, he basically said in regards to Jimmy Kimmel's appearance, his statement, he said, frankly, when you see stuff like this, he said this on Benny Johnson's show. He said, frankly, when you see stuff like this, we can do this the easy way or the hard way. These companies can find ways to change conduct, meaning change content, change topics, change what they're doing programming-wise, and take action, frankly, or there's going to be additional work for the FCC ahead. When you're talking about we can do this the easy way or the hard way, in regards to the government deciding to stifle the speech of anyone, this is not about following federal conduct in regards to operations to comply with the law. When they were specifically talking about this, it's you need to change your content in order to abide with what our dear leader wants. And so Tegna and Nexstar, they want to merge. Well, in order to actually have that done, they have to get the approval by the chairman of the FCC. The chairman of the FCC, who wrote the section for the FCC in Project 2025, works on behalf of Trump, who wants media corporations he doesn't like to lose their license. So these corporations are like, well, let's capitulate to Trump. Let's capitulate to the federal government in order for us to then override and merge. As Deadline Dade Hayes reported, the merger challenges the decade-old limits control on local media. As the new company, if Tegna and Nexstar were to merge, they would control 265 local TV stations across 44 states and the District of Columbia, representing about 80% of American households. This would far exceed the current limit put in place of 39%, which has been in place through both Democrat and Republican administrations. So, how does Jimmy Kimmel fit into this? Well, it's pretty simple, actually. Jimmy Kimmel is a big show for ABC. ABC affiliated stations like Nexstar are trying to suck up to the government in order to merge with Tegna to have more market share. In order to have a monopoly, 80% of all local TV news stations owned by one company. So they have unlimited control no matter what. So, in order to do a backroom under-the-table deal, as soon as Jimmy Kimmel said something, they could be like, oh, let's just blame it on that, suspend him indefinitely as a way to appease the government, and then that way we can get the approval for a merger. Now you're like, okay, well, wait, they brought Jimmy Kimmel back. Yes, they did. And this was partially because Disney started to actually see the real writing on the wall, because they're like, oh, crap. You know, they suspended him and then they decided to bring him back because they're like, this is really tarnishing our public image. This is really hurting our credibility, our bottom line. So they brought him back. And now his ratings have been so fantastic. He's gotten, I think, close to, if not at, 15 million views on his returning broadcast, which is big. Now, I'm a very progressive, I'm a democratic socialist, I believe in, trying to do universal health care, strong regulations on capitalism. I'm that kind of person. And some of the things that Jimmy Kimmel says, I'm just like, ugh, it's too moderate for me. Though I think he does generally a good job. I might not agree with him, but this is the thing. Right now, the right wing, MAGA, Donald Trump, he is echoing a moment in our history that you may have learned about, but you may not remember fully. It's called the Alien and Sedition Acts. It's echoing, it's not the exact same, but it's echoing something that previously happened in American history. So I want to actually bring the historical context in. Did we get a super chat just now? I think we did. I just want to double check. Toy Burger sent a floating heart. Oh, thank you. Aw, I appreciate all of you. Y'all are awesome. Do you really trim your eyebrows? Yes, I do. You know, it's so funny. People like to come at me for my looks all the time. Are you having trouble, are you having trouble taking in my beauty? Taking in my gorgeous face? It's so funny. There are these people that always try to come for my look or, comment on my look. It's like, do something better with your time, sweetheart. Minding your own business is free. And for all the people that scream gay at me, well then, how would you react if I screamed straight at you? It's just weird. It's creepy and strange and weird. Like, anyway. Someone said zesty boy. At least I have flavor. At least I have substance. At least I have texture. I'm not a bland, stale piece of bread. Just saying. I guess if zesty is supposed to be an insult, I'm sorry that at least I'm flavorful, Anyway, but all of this is echoing a moment in our history that you may remember learning about-ish, but I want to actually remind you all of it if you need a little refresher. So, do you all remember the moment after learning about the Revolutionary War, the American Revolution, where we fought to separate from England? Where the colonies were like, actually, we've really thought about it. We want to be a separate entity away from England. There's a big ocean. Y'all are taxing us without giving us representation in your government, and you don't know what it's like physically over here. So we are going to fight to separate from our colonies from your country. Putting in context that they stole the land from the Native Americans and did a genocide on them, pushed them further inland, displaced them, all of that stuff. Now, there was a moment right after the American Revolution, the Revolutionary War, whatever you call it, where after the American government was born, it was a little baby, okay? It was in its infancy. Right after the American Revolution, there was, George Washington, our first president. Then there was a guy named John Adams. John Adams was our second president. The political parties at the time were a little bit different. You had the Federalists, then you had the Anti-Federalists. And it morphed into like that to Democratic Republicans. Don't think of it in terms of Democrat-Republican in that day and age. You had the Federalists and the Anti-Federalists. John Adams, our second president, was a Federalist. And something that happened under his administration was they passed the Alien and Sedition Acts. So this was some of the toughest immigration things within American history, but then also it really criticized and it silenced criticism of the government. So let me tell you what the Alien and Sedition Acts actually were. The strong steps that Adams took in response to the French foreign threat also included severe representation of domestic protests. Geez, what does that sound like? Strong repression of domestic protests. Sounds a lot like what Trump is doing. These laws included new powers to deport foreigners, as well as making it harder for new immigrants that came into the country to vote. Again, this is right after we fought for independence. We were a country made up of immigrants coming from other lands. And they said, okay, now we want to cut off that ability for other people. And this is where then we get to the sedition part of the Alien and Sedition Acts. The most controversial of the new laws permitting strong government control over individual actions was the Sedition Act. In essence, this act prohibited public opposition to the government. Fines, imprisonment could be used against any of those who write, print, utter, or publish any false, scandalous, or malicious writing against the government. This is what the government was saying, hey, anything that we consider false, malicious, scandalous, where we want to eliminate that. Well, this is right after Thomas Jefferson wrote the Declaration of Independence, after after, President Madison wrote, not Thomas Madison, why am I, James Madison, sorry, our fourth president, actually wrote most of the Constitution. So all of this being said, we just established this fundamental idea to declare independence from an oppressive power like England. Then America turns around and says, actually, no, you can't criticize America. America was like, okay, so wait, we just said that we view all men equal, except unless you're black, person of color, or we view all people as equal, except if you're a woman, or, not land owning, the craziness of that. But then they turned around and said, okay, we're all equal, but you can't criticize the government. And so people were like, what? Excuse me? And this didn't bode well. There was actually even one lawmaker that was fined and imprisoned for speaking out. Knowing all of that happened shortly after the Revolutionary War, the American Revolution, and our country's founding, all of that stuff, back in 1796, here we are in 2025, and we're having a very similar moment in American history, where a president is basically doing everything he can to silence media networks, media corporations, have them capitulate to him in order to silence speech he doesn't like. They're building alligator Alcatraz and sending people to prisons, to prisons in countries that they're not even from. So this kind of thing has happened in American history to an extent. They say that history doesn't repeat, it echoes. Well, this is a massive echo chamber right now. So for you, you're like, okay, so this happened kind of in American history. Well, what did they do? Well, people were aware and they stopped it. They were like, okay, this isn't great. After John Adams, then they had Thomas Jefferson. Now, Jefferson has his own issues. Jefferson was one of the biggest slave owners as a president, and he wasn't, in my view, some of the best. Though, this is after John Adams, a guy who, under his administration, was like, yeah, you can't criticize the government. So, history requires context and understanding. And after all of this happening, just pointing out, today, we have a modern-day John Adams doing whatever he can to silence speech he doesn't like, trying to call for media corporations that report news and analysis he doesn't like and calling for them to be eliminated. No, not for them breaking laws, criticizing someone, or engaging in a cancel culture and like, okay, you strongly condemn this or you strongly disagree, and maybe it, fosters a little bit of embarrassment. Engaging in that's protected speech. Criticizing Joe Biden, criticizing Donald Trump, canceling a former very well-favorited person, and then they do something really, really bad and you cancel them, that's all protected speech. Hate speech, the freedom for other people to call me the most obnoxious homophobic slurs, technically that's all protected speech. Now, that doesn't mean that you're not going to face consequences if people scream homophobic slurs at me and then all of a sudden they're booted or muted from the live stream. You can't complain about the consequences because you had the freedom to say it, but it doesn't mean that you're not going to face the ramifications for your actions. If you yell fire in a crowded theater and it leads to people being trampled to death, they will be like, well, what led to this? Your actions. So it's important to note that you have the freedom to do and say things, and it doesn't mean that you're not without the consequences. For people to criticize Trump, it's the same thing. To criticize Biden, it's the same thing. Now, what's different, there's a difference between canceling and deplatforming. Being canceled doesn't violate your free speech. Your freedom of speech doesn't free you from criticism. So for people who don't like me, I'm there. Like, for people who don't like me, you have the freedom to criticize me 100%. Being canceled means you are being condemned, called out, or being held accountable. Being canceled doesn't physically take away, your route to share your views. Being deplatformed does. Being deplatformed is like the Alien and Sedition Acts, as I pointed out. Or our president using the FCC, attempting to revoke the media licenses and deplatform people that you personally disagree with. Same way of Elon Musk banning journalists from X because they give a light criticism. So, a lot of times, there are people, this happens on both sides, but let me be clear, it happens on the right way more. Be like, oh my God, you're canceling me. It's like, yeah, that doesn't mean I'm taking away your voice. I'm allowed to criticize Trump, but you know what he does in return? You know what Trump tries to do in return? He tries to deplatform. He tries to physically take away the oxygen that people use to criticize him. Now, there might be people that say the most unhinged, crazy crap online. But look, as an American, I support your ability to have free speech. No matter if that free speech is yelling homophobic slurs at me. You have the free speech. Now, it doesn't mean that you are going to be free from the consequences. So if you yell homophobic things at me in my chat here, sorry, you're going to be muted. Because this is my space. You're going to face the consequences. That doesn't mean that you can't say those things on your channel all the time. I'm just putting it all in context. There's a difference between being canceled and being deplatformed. What people like John Adams, the Federalist, John Adams, did, passing the Alien and Sedition Acts, enforcing them. The Sedition Acts, which prohibited public opposition to the government for anyone that printed, that uttered, or published anything that the government asserted as false, scandalous, or malicious writing, okay, well then they're going to go to prison. It's like, that's deplatforming. And so there's a difference between criticism and actual deplatforming. So it's important to point all of that out. So when it comes to Jimmy Kimmel, circling back here to Jimmy Kimmel, this was a guy who was just going about his normal show. Let me get back to my page with Jimmy Kimmel on it. Hold on just a second. Oh, geez. Hold on a second. Jimmy Kimmel was going about his normal show. And as I was pointing out, when it came to everything happening with his comments regarding the shooter of Charlie Kirk, it was a very convenient thing for them to be like, oh, well, it's those comments that are leading to his suspension. Well, no. Actually, that's not the full story. The real reason why ABC decided to suspend him was because the ABC affiliated networks, Nexstar, wanted to merge with Tegna to get 80% market share for all local news stations. And in order to do that, these ABC affiliated stations that control that, they're like, well, what can we do? What can we do to suck up to the FCC, the Federal Communications Commission, to then get the approval for us to merge? Creating a monopoly, creating more wealth, creating so much more market share for them, increasing their stock price, increasing their stock, their shareholders' portfolios, stock portfolios. So if that means sucking up to the FCC means throwing someone else like Jimmy Kimmel under the bus to appease the government, then they're going to do it. Now, as soon as they did that, the public was like, ugh, that's stupid, that's awful, that's anti-American. And so the people saw right through it. Disney's stock started to go down, their public image started to go down, PR was really, really bad for them. And they're like, okay, crap. Okay, let's reinstate him. It was a way, like, it was just all done in plain sight. They just thought the American people had grown numb to these kinds of things. And we're not. We're not. Like, we see corruption and you call it as it is. Doesn't matter who it is, who's in power, their ideological leaning. You see corruption, you say it how it is. We're all Americans. Like, that should be one of the biggest things that bonds us together. You see wrongdoing, doesn't matter, people's race, sex, sexual orientation, gender identity. You see wrong, you'd be like, oh, yeah, no ma'am. Doesn't matter if I sound zesty or not. Like, we're all Americans. You know, this is what should bond us together. But there's some people who are so against that vision. There's so many people that engage in this craziness. It's like, don't you have something better to do with your time? Anyway, it spits in the face of the idea of America. Now, that all being said, I hope that really summed up everything happening with Jimmy Kimmel. And to really just put it more into perspective here, Nextstar's CEO is a guy named Perry Sook. Perry Sook, again, has been really trying to get the attention of Brennan Carr as well as Donald Trump in order to get the approval to merge Nextstar with Tegna. Because again, if they merge, that then means that they would control 80% of all local media stations for American households. 80%. That's a legalized monopoly. In order to override the current government's rule, you need to capitulate to the government. You're like, okay, what are you going to give us in return? And you're like, well, that sounds crazy. I mean, that didn't happen. That's wild. You're like, there's no way. Well, let me give you another example. Y'all know what happened to what's his face? Y'all know what happened in CBS with Stephen Colbert? Virtually the same thing. Oh, I see a super chat. You agree. Screw all these MAGA losers in the chat. Oh, thank you, science. I know. You know, it's so funny. They scream their heads off day in and day out. And it's just like, it's just crazy. It's just crazy. Okay, so I do want to entertain one comment. Someone says, as a conservative, no matter if you're left or right, to celebrate the killing of an innocent man is disgusting and inciting violence. I agree. My question is, what do you consider celebrating? See, this is the thing. There's a lot of people who are like, oh, the left is celebrating it. The left is celebrating it. The left is celebrating it. We're not celebrating anything. We're not. Us quoting Charlie Kirk in the wake of his assassination isn't us celebrating him. It's putting his life out in the open in context. You think that we're celebrating another act of gun violence when we have been advocating, asking, begging, and pleading for any semblance of universal background checks, red flag laws, gun control legislation to get guns out of the hands of citizens who are prone to violence? So it's funny because it's this idea. There are many conservatives that are like, oh, well, you're celebrating it. We're not celebrating anything. We're not celebrating anything. If we, in the wake of it, start quoting him saying, yeah, he said, and he said it several times, not several times, but he alluded to several times and even said, gun deaths are an unfortunate mechanism, I'm paraphrasing, or an unfortunate thing for us to have in order to protect the Second Amendment. Another point, he said that empathy is a new age term. Empathy. To where you put yourself in someone else's shoes. He said it's a new age term that does a lot more damage than good. This is a guy who said that the Civil Rights Act was a mistake. So us quoting him in the wake of his assassination isn't us celebrating him. If you're like, oh, it's insensitive to be doing that. Really? Or is it insensitive to the point that he said that? If someone dies and then you leave a quote of them, it's not being insensitive. It's putting their life in context. It's like, this is who this guy was. Now, if you think that that's celebrating, then I sincerely ask you to readjust your expectations. And also, it's important for some people who are like, oh, well, they are celebrating it. Do you know how cruel and mean that guy was? This is a guy who relished in other people's pain. He said people like me should be stoned to death. He advocated for modern day stoning of LGBTQ people. So am I, as an LGBTQ person, am I supposed to be like, have the utmost amount of like compassion for someone who wanted me dead? Now, because I'm a human, I don't care. Like, if you want to hurt me, I'm not gonna want to hurt you. Like, I'm a human. I'm not gonna do that. I'm not a vengeful person in that way. I actually, at one point, and it also goes into like these conservatives or many people on the right who can't understand. They're like, oh, well, why are you defending Palestinians? Many in Gaza, they would kill you for being gay. And it's like, so am I supposed to do like a quid pro quo of like, okay, so you don't defend my human rights, so I'm not supposed to defend yours? Like, if you have innocent Palestinians who are being victimized by Israel, right? And because some Palestinian people aren't very LGBTQ friendly, I'm supposed to then be like, well, I don't care if they're gone? No, that's not it at all. Like, I'm not going to pick and choose when I want to believe in someone's human rights. That's silly. And I've shared this story before. When I was living in Pittsburgh, when I was living up in Pennsylvania, there was a guy who was clearly having an episode. He had a big bloody wound on his head. He was stumbling home. He was very drunk. And I saw him while I was on my walk. And I'm just walking. I remember being in like more rainbow looking clothes because I like that kind of stuff. And he clearly was stumbling around. He looked like he was about to fall over again. And I walked over to him. I said, sir, do you need anything? Is there a way I can help you? He was so drunk, but I just knew. He was mumbling like slurs at me. Even drunk and bloody, he was trying to be nasty. And I'm like, oh my God. Now, it's so funny because he almost became so unconscious that he actually fell onto me and I caught him. We were walking it was on concrete. If I was not there to physically catch him, he probably would have fallen to the ground and cracked open his skull and died. Now, I am going to be a nice person. I'm going to help someone, even if they're trying to be nasty, you know? Am I supposed to pick and choose when I want to support someone like that? No. Now, in the wake of Charlie Kirk's assassination, am I going to be like ecstatic or happy? No, because that would be me picking and choosing, oh, well, you know, my idea of wanting to support everyone. But also put it in context. This is a guy who wanted me to be killed, stoned to death because I'm gay. So for some people, they're going to be like, well, I'm not going to give empathy to people who then obviously don't want it, obviously don't need it. So, you know, does it all make sense? So, oh, thank you, Sky. Oh, you deserve the most beautiful diamonds. Oh, thank you. I appreciate that. Yeah, I appreciate all the super chats, y'all. Y'all are amazing. Happy Friday. So, show us when he said that. I bet you can't. Well, Ashley Mills, I'm not here to talk about Charlie Kirk and specifically show that. I encourage you to go and check out my past live streams where you will see that, but I know you won't click on them. That being said, this is what would happen. This is what would happen if I were to do that. Let me just put this up here. Hold on just a sec. Even if I were to specifically show you those moments, this is what you would do. He didn't say that. And if he did, he didn't mean that. And if he did, you didn't understand it. And if you did, it's not a big deal. And if it is, others have said worse. That would be the MAGA logical sequence of rationalization for insanity. So, perfect impression, thank you. No, but tell me, like, that, yep, that's exactly them, yep. So, this is what, that's exactly what it would be. Anyway, so I wanted to highlight all of that with Charlie Kirk. I wanted to highlight all of that in regards to that happening earlier this week. Now, there's another Trump moment that I actually wanted to talk about here. This happened, when was this? The 18th. So this was going to be last Friday. Maybe that was last Friday? Yeah. Was it? Was the 18th last Friday? I'm not good at math. Anyway, so this is another thing that happened like just a week ago, but it's not even being talked about anymore. So this is just how fast our news cycle moves. So, oh, I see another super chat in here. The right celebrated violence versus Nancy Pelosi. Yeah, 100%. So for people, thank you for sharing that. And like, here's the thing. There's all these people that celebrated violence for people on the left. There was an assassination of Melissa Hortman and her husband. For those people who do not know, Melissa Hortman was in line to be Speaker of the House for Minnesota, and it was determined, they were like, yeah, there's evidence to believe that the person who shot her and her husband wanted to physically decrease the number of Democrats so that it would be possible for Republicans to control the chamber. And when we talked about it, there were all these MAGA people that were like relishing, celebrating, laughing it off. I'm not a fan of Nancy Pelosi. I'm not a fan of her husband either. But does the man deserve to be like hit with a hammer in that way? No. But for all these people on the right that then started doing that, there were flags half staff for Charlie Kirk. But how many times does violence happen to people on the left and the right jokes about it? This is the thing. There is an overcapitulation of empathy always for people on the right. They're not, the left and the right are not playing by the same set of rules. They don't. And it's been so infuriating looking at it through American politics in that way. So, all of that being said, I appreciate that super chat. I want to get back to this real quick here. This is another thing that happened. This was on the 18th. I believe that was a Friday, if I'm not mistaken. So these are just normal Trump quips that will just... If this was any other president, this would still be talked about 2 weeks from now. 2 weeks from this moment. Yet it gets 2 days and it's done. Because there's another crazy thing that happens. So... This was an interview, I believe, with Martha McCallum over on Fox. I think that's who it was. I would have to double check. It was with a Fox anchor who is a woman. And Trump, at one point, just said this. So this is another small little Trump quip that happened about a week ago. He said, "You understand that we will be reducing drug costs over the next year, not by 50 or 60%, but by 1,000%. Because if you think a $10 bill, it will be raised up from $10 to $20, because it's the world versus us. The world is bigger, it's a bigger place. So it will go from 10 to 20 for them, which is bearable, and it will go from 10 to 20 for us." Now pause. Let me just state unequivocally, I believe in a universal healthcare system. I believe in trying to lower the prices of prescription drugs, putting a cap on the price of prescription drugs, actually regulating drug companies from price gouging people. The fact that he's saying this, I am like, great, that's awesome. Let's lower prescription drug prices. Maybe we should take a page out of the book of our former president, who I wasn't the biggest fan of for many reasons because he wasn't progressive enough, but he put a cap on the price of some prescription drugs. That's great. Lowering some drug prices. That's awesome. Now, it's not enough to just sound and say good things anymore. That used to be fine at one point, but it's like, okay, I'm so tired of words. I want action. There are people who will criticize the Israeli government for endlessly waging this war on innocent Palestinian people. But then they go around and they just use strong rhetoric. Strong rhetoric's not enough. And this is the thing with politics. There's always these people that use strong rhetoric and they think that's somehow enough. It's like, no, you got to do action, honey. This is the American public. You need to do some action if you want to show and get reelected. That's how it should be, at least. Now, because this is the same guy that said, I have concepts of a healthcare plan. I have concepts. I'm not the biggest person regarding math, but let me break this down here. He says, you understand we will be reducing drug costs. Great. Not by 50% or 60%, but by 1,000%. Let me actually bring up some math here. And you're like, did you really do this? Yes. Yes, I did. So this is Trump's math in his brain here. If you decrease drug costs, not by 50%, but by 1,000%, this is what it would get you. Let's say that your prescription is $50. 50% off is $25. That's awesome. 100% off, that would be free. So what's 10 times 100% off? Well, 150% off means that it would be negative $25. Walgreens, CVS, your pharmacy would pay you to give you the prescription. If it's 1,000% off, then that means it would be negative $450, meaning that that would be the government paying you to take your prescription. And when you really look at this, what Trump is actually saying is incredibly socialist of him. He's saying, look, I want the government to give you money to take your prescription, but then also at the same time, I don't like acetaminophen. I don't like it. It's so crazy. It's so crazy, y'all. Y'all send some likes if you're enjoying the live stream. Seriously, it means a lot that you all are here. That all being said, like, there's a clear thing that happens with the right versus the left, or in regards to leadership. The right simply doesn't care about the impact of rhetoric and words when it comes to unrealistic expectations. The left or Democrats are looking at this being like, this is such a mockery. This is so stupid. This is crazy. And like, the right is like, even if you say things that sound crazy, we want you anyway. And see, this is the thing. Many people on the right don't view the presidency as a serious job. Otherwise, they wouldn't elect someone like Donald Trump. Like, there's no possible way to reduce drug prices by 1,000%. There's just not. But the thing is, the right doesn't take the fact that the president says this kind of thing seriously. He says it. Do you for a second think that he's joking? No, this is Trump we're talking about. This is a guy who will do and say things and like try to get away with the most ungetawayable crap. So like, you know he's not joking. It's humiliating living in a country with this guy as president. And let me just get to some people's reactions here. And these are the founding fathers. This person posted this. How about in 249 years we try having a king again, only this time he's really fucking dumb. Promise everything, deliver nothing, blame Biden. That makes a lot of sense. I will pay good money for the reporter that finally stands up to him and says, what the fuck are you talking about? How can you reduce prices more than 100%? Are you giving people their money back? Yeah, 100%. We'll be reducing prices by 1,000% by doubling them. And that was another thing. I didn't even get to the second part of his statement here. Because he says, because if you think a $10 pill, it will be raised from 10 to 20 because it's the world versus us. The world is bigger place. Who's raising it from 10 to 20? Is it the drug companies? Is it the medicine industrial complex? What are you talking about? And it's the world versus us. How is the world somehow simultaneously also the prescription drug companies? Like, you said it's the world. So is it like what? Other countries like Argentina, Azerbaijan, Albania, whatever, are like they're versus us? So we'll go from 10 to 20 for them, which is bearable. Who's them? And we'll go 10 to 20 for us. Who and what is it? Is that the drug, the price? Like it. This is the thing. these MAGA Trump cultists will just read into whatever they want it to be. This is how cults work. They get you emotionally connected to something, and then whenever they say something that sounds so crazy, you rationalize around it in order to then remain as a part of the cult, because that is your culture, that is your crew. And so it doesn't matter if it's inconsistent, or if it sounds crazy, or does real world damage, you do whatever you can to rationalize around being a continued part of the being a cog in the machine for that cult. And you're like, oh, how do you know that? Because I was in it. I was raised as a Trumper. That's the rationalization. Don't think for a second that people in this live stream don't have that exact same process whenever they are going around and being spewing crap. This is what's happening in your head. At least I have the courage to tell you to your face to escape now. And that's the thing. To all these far right-wing people that come in here and try to clown or try to be obnoxious, I'm just trying to get you to think critically for yourself. You could disagree with my takes, my opinion, my analysis. That's fine. But think for yourself. Seriously, do yourself some respect. Anyway, I appreciate all of you. And to all people in here who are strong friends, followers, and appreciate the live stream, it means more than you know. I really appreciate receiving positive comments from people, empowering, spreading love, peace, understanding. Y'all are awesome. And so that was just a moment that wasn't even barely talked about. And it was funny because this person said, oh, I get it. He's lowering the price so much that it loops back and becomes more expensive. And so I was like, oh, let me do that as a picture here. I just thought that was kind of funny. And yeah. But moving along with other things that have happened this week in regards to the news, we've already covered a lot of it. This is where we get to the UN. This is where we get to the escalator. This is where we get to everything that has happened, with the teleprompter, all of that. So I'm going to recap this real quick, and then I'm going to have to skedaddle and get to work. But I appreciate all of you. Make sure to send some likes. Y'all are incredible. I know it's 10:30. Let's finish off strong. Can we get to 100 likes before the live stream ends? Can we do that? Or like at least some of those. I appreciate all of you. Make sure to tap the screen. So with all of the craziness that's happened in America, there are real problems going on. Gun violence obviously is a huge issue. Affordability for groceries, prescription drug, housing, inflation, shrinkflation happening. Climate change continues to be a huge issue. You have people's civil liberties, civil rights being ignored. You have people being deported without due process. You have cruelty. You still have racism. And there's endless attacks on my community, the LGBTQ community. But the world has to come to a grinding halt when a whiny billionaire steps onto an escalator and it stops. The world has to come to a grinding halt. And there's a whole cult of people that is surrounding this guy, thinking that he's the most masculine, most like strong man ever. When he pauses, or when he starts going up an escalator and it stops, and he looks around being like, am I really gonna have to walk up these stairs? It really shows how far this country has fallen to have this kind of thing. And because Trump is such a strong man, because he's such a super courageous, truth-telling leader, because he is, the most adaptable president ever, he had to go on Truth Social and whine about everything. So his White House press secretary, Caroline Leavitt, even was like, we're demanding investigation into this sabotage. It would be like mainstream liberals to pause an escalator being like, oh, that's sabotage. It's a really low-key lame sabotage. Okay? You ever been on an escalator and it stops? Or you ever been on an elevator or escalator and it stops? You can tackle that more easily. Just walk up it. Just walk up or down it. I've been at the mall and the escalator stops and I'm like, okay, keep going. adapt and overcome. But the whole United States has to come to a grinding halt because of this whiny billionaire. It's humiliating. So let's break it all down, and then we'll get to everything. Let me just address the super chat real quick. Oh, thank you, Science. You're awesome. Have a great day. Aww. I appreciate all of you. Seriously, it means a lot. Y'all are awesome. Y'all are amazing. Okay, cool. Making sure I got all the super chats. Yeah, so White House press secretary demands investigation into bad escalator. This is just so crazy that this all happens. So White House press secretary Caroline Leavitt is demanding an investigation into an escalator that stopped working while President Donald Trump was at the United Nations headquarters, calling for anyone responsible for it. I want you to be fired. You're fired. You're fired. You're fired. Out of a cannon. Boom. Boom. Trump and First Lady Melania were at the UN building Tuesday, where the president would deliver an hour-long speech to the UN General Assembly that lambasted other member nations, including a number of false claims that were swiftly fact-checked. Excuse me. Yesterday I talked all about the content of Donald Trump's speech. I might gloss over that real quick before I end the live stream. Anyway, right after the president and his wife stepped onto the escalator, it stopped suddenly. After pausing for a few moments, they continued walking up the escalator that was now temporary stairs. And Trump incorporated this moment into his big hour-long speech, where he's like, all I got from the United Nations was an escalator on the way up that stopped in the middle. And the first lady wasn't, she wasn't in great shape, she would have fallen, but she's in great shape. I didn't realize that an escalator that stops in the middle is like right there. I didn't realize that the middle of the escalator is like, here's the escalator. Of course, it goes all the way off screen here. I didn't realize that the middle is like right there. just as a quick little aside, just saying. But continuing onward here, the footage, if you go and watch it, it's not like super crazy or funny. He you know, pauses, and then all of a sudden he's like, okay, I guess I'll walk up the stairs. Also, I hope the live isn't glitching for anyone. Is it glitching for anyone? I'm seeing it might be glitching a little bit on my end here. So hopefully it's not. But put in the chat if it is. But yeah, so he said, all I got from the United Nations was an escalator that on the way up. Sorry about that. Hold on just a second. Stream is studying on my end. No, I'm good. All good. We're still all good. It's okay on my end. Okay. Cool. Yeah, I'm gonna have to go here soon though, but just wanted to check. And continuing onward here regarding this whole thing, Caroline Leavitt, that White House press secretary, was like, if someone at the UN intentionally stopped the escalator as the president and first lady were stepping on it, they need to be fired and investigated immediately. Now, what's actually kind of interesting, putting in context here, the Times reported this on Sunday. She said, to mark Trump's arrival, UN staff members joked that they may turn off the escalators and elevators and simply tell him that they ran out of money, so he has to walk up the stairs. Well, there has been a bit of scaling back, means testing, limited money for operations for different... That was more of a joke. It's not meant to be serious evidence. Also, it says that they may, members have joked that they may do it. So that's not necessarily evidence itself. We want to talk about hardcore evidence though, then let's actually look at what the UN concluded. The UN concluded probe in a Trump escalator situation. This is from the White House, the UN correspondent here. Her Farnoosh Amiri, if I mispronounced that, I apologize. And all of this being said, in answers to many questions received about the escalator incident this morning, President, First Lady, blah, 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 following information to share, in an effort to document the arrival of videographer from the U.S. delegation stepped onto the escalator ahead of the President, First Lady. As the videographer, who was traveling backwards up the escalator, reached the top, the First Lady, President Trump, followed at the bottom, and at that moment, 9:50, the escalator came to a stop. Our technician, who was at the location, reset the elevator, and as soon as the delegation had climbed up to the second floor, a subsequent investigation, including a readout of the machine central processing unit, indicated that the escalator had stopped after a built-in safety mechanism on the comb step was triggered at the top of the escalator. The safety mechanism is designed to prevent people or objects accidentally being caught or stuck in or pulled into the gearing. The videographer may have inadvertently triggered the safety function described above. Now, whether you choose to believe or not to believe the UN spokesperson, I'm not here to tell you. Generally, I will believe the UN spokesperson, but if you don't want to, I encourage you to, but that's on you, okay? Regardless, Trump's reaction to everything here, he posted more than 24 hours later on Truth Social. He was so animated, so upset, so cravenly, unhinged about the whole thing. Let me show you his specific remarks here. Hold on just a second. Where did it go? Hold on. Where is his post? Where did it go? Hold on a sec. Oh my gosh, here it is. A real disgrace took place at the United Nations yesterday. He posted this rant that I had to take 3 screenshots in order to document. 3 screenshots. 3. It's a whole long thing. Let me just read out the entire thing here, okay? A real disgrace took place at the Hey y'all, I gotta actually skedaddle here. Sorry about that. I need to handle something. I'm a working class girly, so I'm gonna go. I appreciate every single one of you. Y'all are amazing. So I gotta get going, but y'all are incredible. Y'all are amazing. Shout out to my amazing moderators. I have to get going here. But I could not do this without my mods. Kate, Akicha, Ellie, Elisa, Cantisa, Joanna Tech, Jenny, Cherie. I love all of you so much. Make sure to smash that subscribe button if you haven't. I love all of you so much. So I need to get going. I need to go and handle something, because I'm a working class girly. So anyway, just remember that you are beautiful, you are loved, you are valid, you are strong, and you are fierce. Don't let anyone or anything ever, 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 ever dim your shine. I love all of you so much. Bye!